we did a little video in the past that actually placed the birth certificate down on a table and then hit it with a hammer. And I said that if you actually go, ouch, and it's the one you believe is yours, if you go, ouch, then it's really you. That would show that you really are connected to it and you've been actually deceived. And so when we're going down this, we have to understand a legal birth is not a natural birth. And in fact, the original belief on the Caesar that would run the civil system at the time, the original Caesar was believed to have been born by an artificial birth that was called a cesarean section. So they extracted that child out of the womb. It was not a natural birth coming out naturally. So that was the actual thought behind the original Caesar's birth. So it has actually even a bad connotation right off the top that it's not natural, it's artificial. So the surname that occurs on the statement of birth record the parents fill out is really in essence a artificial birth, a legal birth, and so the legal surname is really that legal child. And that's why some of the birth records that have come out of some of the hospitals, some don't have this and some do. But there is evidence that what I've said before in previous videos, the legal surname is the legal birth name. And so therefore, if you're were born with the belief that your last name was, say, the name Smith, it would come out on the certificate, baby boy Smith. And that's what came out of the hospitals, because they would not know what the given name was going to be until the parents filled out the statement of birth record. But uniquely, hospitals at one time used to issue out a commemorative certificate that came directly out of the hospital that would only say the last name of the child. It would just say baby boy Smith or baby girl Smith. It did not have anything to do with the given name, because the doctor who would take delivery of the legal child, this artificial child, would have no evidence of truth yet. And so therefore, if the parents had not filled out the birth record right away, the first thing that really does come out of their legal system is the legal birth name or just the surname that would be on the certificate. We've been confused because the parents try to transfer something that's non-transferable to the state, something that's unalienable, and that's the given name. So your God-given Christian name does not belong to the state and therefore is not their property. And there's where the problem comes in. So they require the first form that the doctor fills out, the attending doctor who takes delivery of this child that only has a last name, a legal surname, and then basically they take the second form that the parents fill out, called the Form 2, when they're forming 2, and then they compare the two, and then they create a birth certificate. But remember, the creation that they've had here is not really, it's not going down a pattern of truth. It's deliberately left ambiguous and unclear as just name. So if it was John Smith, it would show up on the certificate as name, Smith, comma, John. And that's how they used to bring the dead back. So it represented a dead child entity. Therefore, it's dead. It's the estate of the dead, and therefore the book of the dead it would be entered into. So it's unfortunately a miscarriage of justice. And so until you actually comprehend what's going on, you will be in a misconception of birth. So when we go down birth certificate name, and I try to tell people, is your signature on these? And they go, no. Well, then you're not the signing authority. You're not the signatory. So birth certificate name, signatory, or sponsor, or guarantor is what we're dealing with here. And because the two that are on there are sponsoring this event, and so we're going to read a letter that came back from the Office of the Registrar General for Ontario, when I had written to them in the past, and it said, to be clear, the Office of the Registrar General is responsible for registering in formation. That's an army name. In formation is how you put an army in place, and you need an arms name to be armed in the information system. So it says, to be clear, the Office of the Registrar General is responsible for registering information about events. The Office of the Registrar General does not register people. So they're not registering something real, they're registering something that's artificial. It's not a it's not a it's not a natural man or woman or child being born there. It is an artificial concept of a child. It is a conception of legal birth. We'll call it just legal science fiction. That's how they run this. So when we go to definitions, we're going to go to signatory. And signatory, I'm reading out of the New World Basic. Sorry if that's it's not the way I would generally go to a dictionary, but because this is still a Webster's and it still is a college edition, we've referred to it many times because there's some things that occur in different dictionaries, and so they're good for reference for that reason. Generally, the thicker the dictionary, the more you're going to get out of it, and the more accurate it's going to be in the etymology of the word to get you started down the journey of knowledge. So when we go to signatory, it says it comes from of sealing, a signer, one who seals or signs, to set upon, sign. Okay, so when we look at it, who is the signatory then on the birth certificate? Well, it's the Deputy Registrar General and Registrar General. So they're the signing authorities, they're the sponsors, they're the guarantors. Now, could this really be? Well, we're going to go now to the Canadian Law Dictionary, and we're going to read the word sponsor. A surety, benefactor, guarantor, or underwriter, a person who gives security, makes a promise, or officially takes responsibility for someone else. Now, you know you couldn't have done this deed to yourself, and you couldn't have induced truth into something that's fictional. So therefore, those that are part of that office are responsible for the inducement of an item that was private, did not belong to the state, does not belong to Caesar. The God-given Christian name is not theirs, and they induced it into the writing to lead you to believe that you actually are part of that system. But you're not. You're a stranger to it. So it says, the second definition for sponsor is a person or organization that fully or partially supports the costs of an event. Now, we just read that the Registrar General basically does not, or the Registrar General does not register people, it registers events. So it is the legal sponsor, like the Catholic Church has when they have a child being baptized from the beginning, not the baptism that occurs in the Bible, because there are no child baptisms in the Bible anywhere through there. So this is a Roman civil version of baptism. That's why they've confused certain things, and they say, well, we're going to baptize this surname that's about to go on its legal journey of money and commerce for the state. So they're the signatories, they're responsible all the way through. But if you decide you want to intermingle with it and you want to take it over, well, that's where the takeover has happened, and you've become surety for this document. And so now you've walked into a contract of debt and sin. And that's how this operates. It's not very difficult to comprehend, but I'm going to tell you the people who will be the most offended by what I'm saying are the people that have put the most into the system, where they've been signing, they've been using picture ID, they've been doing things that show their consent to take over a debt in a title that is not theirs, and then find out later that they own nothing anyways, that it belongs to the legal state anyways, and they've deceived themselves. Now, as Paul said in Galatians chapter 6, verse 3, if a man thinks he is something when he is no thing, he deceiveth his own mind. Well, I think we're getting the understanding here, because Paul was definitely talking about a system that he was surrounded with at the time that was dominated by the Roman civil law. And that's how it is, and it's a big collection agency. It's called collect. So when you basically use memory in the legal world, you use the word I recollect, because that's how it works. It's a collection direction of money, and so therefore it has to collect debt. And therefore, if you're the guy on the hook for the debt, it's going to go that way. When we go to even just what we call synonyms, okay, and antonyms that will be found in the thesaurus, we look under the very word that we've been talking about here, which is guarantor. And just a second, if you bear with me. Here, and I guess I must have lost my space. But guarantor leads to sponsor. Yes, it leads to. Listen to the words that are used as a synonym for guarantor. Angel shows up. Backer. Bondsman. Covenanter. Insurer. Sponsor. Supporter. Voucher. Warrantor. So who warrants the name? Well, the very office that issues the certificate. So they are the signatories to that name that appears on there. Now, if you keep showing up on it and trying to show it up, and keep showing up to court saying, I'm the guarantor, I'm the sponsor, I'll pay the fine because I feel fine, right? I don't feel well, I feel fine. And if you feel fine, then you've actually missed the direction right away. You can never feel well if you're feeling fine. You don't get water from a fine, you get water from a well. So we have to understand that these things were in front of you. They didn't hide it, but there is an inducement in there. We're not going to say there was no inducement to deceive, but once you have seen the truth, which will make you free, you're no longer going to be required to put your signature down on anything anymore. And this is the way out, but you can't play both sides. You can't choose to sign here with your signature and then think that you're going to use the seal of this office. Okay? So remember, they're liquid because they're a legal office. They're off ice. Your account is always frozen. That's why when you're out there trying to imitate the public authority, official public capacity, having the office of the last name, which only belongs to officials elected into public office, you basically are told by the officers to freeze. They'll say freeze because you're acting as if you're liquid. And you're not liquid. Only those in the public office are liquid and have access to the funds. But in the meantime, they'll give you some crumbs and they will fund a bunch of mentals. That's what they call it, fundamental, for certifiables who are institutionalized, who do not know the difference between truth and fiction, right and wrong.